In the early 20th century, the legendary psychoanalyst Carl Jung was invited to meet a man who was widely considered a saint. Everyone who met this man described him as pure, incredibly empathetic, and deeply attuned to the emotions of others. He was a man who seemed to have no flaws, a man who listened to everyone's pain and offered perfect comfort. But when Jung finally sat in a room with him, something strange happened. Jung did not feel comforted. He felt a creeping sense of dread. He later described feeling a psychic stench in the room, an overwhelming, invisible presence of darkness. Jung realized that the man's flawless empathy was not genuine love. It was a perfectly constructed mask to hide a terrifying hunger for control. Jung had just encountered what modern psychology now calls a dark empath. We are taught that predators are easy to spot. We think they are loud, aggressive, or cold. But Carl Jung knew the terrifying truth. The most dangerous people in your life do not break down your doors. They sit quietly in your living room, wearing a mask made of your own desires, and they pick the locks of your mind using your own secrets. You might be in a relationship with one right now. You might work for one. And you have no idea that your emotions are being perfectly puppeteered. Why? Because they do not attack your conscious mind. They bypass your logic completely, and they speak directly to the darkest, most hidden part of your psychology. Today, we are going to use the profound wisdom of Carl Jung to expose exactly how the dark empath controls you without you ever noticing, and how to finally cut the invisible strings. To understand how they control you, we must understand the concept of the persona. Carl Jung explained that the persona is the social mask we all wear. It is the version of ourselves we present to the world to be accepted. For most of us, the persona is just a polite compromise between who we really are and what society demands. But for the dark empath, the persona is not a compromise. It is a weapon. A dark empath possesses high cognitive empathy, meaning they can read your emotions like a complex data spreadsheet, but they lack the affective empathy to actually feel your pain. Because they do not feel the emotions, they are not distracted by them. This allows them to craft a persona that is terrifyingly customized to exactly what you need. When they meet you, they scan your psychological structure. If you are someone who craves a protector, their persona becomes strong and decisive. If you are someone who wants to be rescued, their persona becomes nurturing and infinitely patient. They do not just act nice. They transform into the exact puzzle piece that your psyche has been missing. You think you have met your soulmate. You think you have met a rare, deeply intuitive human being. But as Jung warned, where power predominates, love is lacking. Their empathy is not an act of love. It is an act of psychological espionage. They are gathering the data required to build the perfect mask so they can bypass your intellectual defenses and walk straight into the control room of your mind. Once they are inside the walls of your trust, the real manipulation begins. And this is where Jung's most famous concept becomes a matter of survival: the shadow. According to Jung, your shadow contains all the parts of yourself that you have repressed. Your deepest insecurities, your shameful desires, your unhealed childhood wounds, and your secret fears of inadequacy. You spend your entire life trying to hide your shadow from the world. But the dark empath has a radar for the shadow. They do not manipulate your logical brain. They manipulate the parts of you that you refuse to look at. Let's say your shadow contains a deep, repressed fear that you are unintelligent. A normal manipulator might insult your intelligence directly. You would recognize the insult, get angry, and leave. But the dark empath is surgical. During a mild disagreement, they will not yell. They will look at you with calm, empathetic eyes and say softly, "I know you struggle to process complex things when you're emotional, so I'll just handle this for you." But here we must pause and anchor ourselves in clinical reality. It is easy to view the dark empath as a supernatural mastermind, a demonic force playing chess with human lives. But Carl Jung would warn us against mythologizing them. The dark empath is not a god of manipulation. They are, in fact, a deeply fragmented, profoundly terrified human being. Their hypervigilant cognitive empathy was likely developed as a trauma response in a chaotic childhood. They learned to read the emotions of unpredictable adults just to survive. They manipulate because they are terrified of vulnerability. They control others because their own internal world is a chaotic, unhealed void. They wear the persona because if they ever took it off and faced their own shadow, it would destroy them. Understanding this does not mean you should stay. Empathy for the predator does not require you to become the prey. But seeing them not as an all-powerful monster, but as a wounded, avoidant human, removes their mystical power over you. The illusion breaks. The strings fall away. How do you become immune to the dark empath? You do not defeat them by out-manipulating them. You defeat them by doing the one thing they are terrified of doing. You must face your own shadow. Carl Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." The dark empath only has power over you because they are using the parts of yourself that you refuse to accept. They use your hidden shame. They use your fear of abandonment. They use your desperate need for validation. If you do the difficult, painful work of exploring your own shadow, if you accept your flaws, understand your childhood wounds, and stop hiding from your own darkness, you remove all of their ammunition. When a manipulator points out a flaw that you have already accepted, it has no power. It is just a hollow word. A person who is fully integrated, who knows both their light and their darkness, cannot be controlled by a mirror. Do not let anyone wander into the dark rooms of your mind. Light the torch. Map your own soul. Because once you know exactly who you are, no one can ever tell you who you should be. This is Cognaloom. Signal in the noise.